Today, I'm going to put your attentiveness to the test. Pay attention to every little detail, and you'll solve all the riddles in no time. Mark was walking along the river when he heard someone screaming. It was a young woman who was drowning. The guy immediately left his jacket and backpack on the ground and jumped into the water. Luckily, he was on time. When Mark pulled the woman out of the river, he saw a passerby standing next to his stuff.
Unfortunately, I can't swim, but I looked after your things,
the man said. Then why did you rummage in my backpack? Mark asked. How did he understand someone had opened his backpack? When he dropped the bag on the ground, the zipper was on the left side, but now it's on the right side. It was a scorching hot day when Thomas made a bet with his friends. At that time, they were chilling in the garden, drinking water and lemonade. Thomas told his friends that water produced by different companies tasted different too. You can blindfold me. I'll take a sip from 2 bottles of water, the one we have on the table and the one from a different producer. I saw it in the kitchen. I bet I'll be able to tell the difference. Then he did exactly that. His friends were ready to give Thomas the money he had won. But one of them cut in. You were cheating, he said. Why did he think so? It was an extremely hot day. No wonder the water had been outside for several hours, which was much warmer than the water brought from the kitchen. Someone robbed a bank in a large city. A police detective went to visit the main suspect, who had been detained several times before.
I've been feeling unwell this week, and I haven't left my apartment for 3 days. Luckily, I didn't need food. My fridge is full. You can make sure of it yourself,
the man said, and opened his fridge. But the detective realized the man was lying and arrested him. How did he figure it out? First of all, that loaf of bread on the table looks fresh. Plus, if the man had been staying inside for 3 days already, his fridge wouldn't be so full. Mr. Black sold beautiful, rare vases. There were dozens of them on the shelves of his store. One day, the man called the police. When they arrived, the owner had his head bandaged and his store was a mess. Some guys in masks ran into my store and grabbed the money and the most expensive vases. Then they hit me on the head and I blacked out. Police officers immediately understood that Mr. Black was lying to get the insurance money. How did they figure it out? Even though most of the vases are on the floor, they aren't even cracked. But if the vases had fallen down from the shelves during the robbery, they would have been shattered. Look at these 2 bloggers. As you see, they both seem to be very popular. They also have the same amount of likes, but there's something wrong with one of them. She must be hiding something. What is it? The girl on the right has a fake bag. The logo on it looks like that of Chanel, but it's written Gucci underneath. Marcel was driving along a dangerous mountain road. Suddenly, he saw a man sitting on the side of the road and stopped. It turned out the man hadn't managed to control his car. It fell off the road and the man got thrown out of the window. And now, his very expensive car was beyond repair.
Could you be my witness when I prepare the documents for my insurance company?
The man asked Marcel. The guy agreed, but asked the man to show him what was inside the car. The man took the key out of his pocket and unlocked the damaged vehicle. I won't take part in this fraud, Marcel said. Why did he think the man was lying? If the man had been thrown out of the car, the key would still be in the ignition. Dylan and Susan had been happily married for 10 years. One day, Dylan went on a business trip. When he returned, Susan immediately understood that the man wasn't her husband. How did she figure it out? Dylan always wore his wedding ring. If you were attentive, you must have noticed it on his finger. But the man who returned to Susan didn't have the wedding ring. The police found out that a smuggler was going to leave the country through the largest airport in the city. A detective arrived there and detained 3 people who looked suspicious. Look at them and try to figure out who the smuggler is. It's the 3rd passenger. His suitcase is full of totally random stuff. Women's shoes, some random socks, a pair of old dirty jeans, and even a wig. Plus, when closed, the suitcase looks much larger than when it's open. Sarah's husband, Michel, was a professional cyclist. He was about to have a challenging cycling tournament. "I promise I'll bring you the bouquet they give to the winner," Michel told Sarah. 4 hours later, he came back with beautiful flowers. But Sarah realized right away that Michel hadn't won the tournament. How did she figure it out? Those flowers are actually from Sarah's garden. The same flowers are growing next to their house. Look at these people. The man is in the hospital. He's lost his memory. And these 2 women both claim to be his partner. One of them is obviously lying, but which one? The woman on the left is lying. If they were married, they would have wedding rings on their fingers. Now, there are these 3 people. One of them is lying. Who is it? Look at this woman claiming that she's pregnant. See that Adam's apple? It's a man. He can't be pregnant. Look at these people. Can you figure out who's a vampire? It's this man. See those fangs? Creepy. Which of these girls is the man's wife? It's the girl on the right. She's wearing a necklace saying Kate, and the man has a tattoo with the same name on his arm. A store security guard stopped a man who was leaving a clothing store. "The sales assistant claims you've stolen a pair of expensive gloves."
These are my gloves. I've had them for ages.
But the security guard immediately understood the man was lying. How? The man wouldn't be able to use these gloves. They're both for the same hand. Rachel reached the final of a game show. In the last round, she could win a gold bar, but only if she managed to get it. One of the bars was in a container with boiling hot water. The jar containing the second bar was filled with strong acid. And in the third jar, there were venomous scorpions. Which container should Rachel choose? The woman just needs to wait until the water in the first jar cools down and take the gold bar. Detective Adams came to a park to have lunch in the sun, but his attention was drawn by 3 men running around a fountain. Each of them was shouting, "Thief! Catch the thief!" The detective was confused. Who was the real thief? That's why he just kept watching. After some time, the distance between the men shortened. Detective Adams immediately realized who the real thief was. Can you figure it out too? If the third man was the thief, the second one would only have to turn around to catch him. The same goes for the second man, which means the man running the first is the criminal. If it rains at midnight, can you expect that in 72 hours it will be sunny? No way! In 72 hours, it's gonna be night again. Can you crack this rebus puzzle? That's right, it means accelerate.
Imagine you are being interviewed for a job opening at one of the world's largest companies. I'm talking about Google, Microsoft, or even Elon Musk's SpaceX. But to get your dream job, you have to pass a very tricky entry exam. I've gathered some of the questions that are actually used in these tests, so put on your thinking hat and don't settle for less than 100%. Good luck. We'll start out easy. The first riddle you need to solve is the 2-jug riddle. Here's the drill. Your mother asks you to measure 4 cups of orange juice using 2 jugs. The thing is, you have a 20-cup jug and a 36-cup jug. How can you do it? You need to start by pouring the orange juice into the smaller jug. Then, pour all the juice from that jug into the 36-cup jug. This way, the empty space from the big jug would give you 16 cups. After doing that, you can fill the 20-cup jug using more fresh juice and pour that liquid into the 36-cup jug. This way, you'll fill the entire 36-cup jug. And what is left in the smaller jug is the 4 cups of juice your mom asked for. Clever, huh? Moving on to the second round. Say your room has 3 switches, and one of these switches is for the fan in the room next door. You cannot see whether the fan is on or off unless you come out of your room. Got that? Okay, so I need you to figure out what's the minimum amount of times you need to go inside the room next door to identify the correct switch that turns on the fan. This is a little bit tricky, but here's the solution. The minimum amount of times you can go inside the room next door and still figure out the answer is 1. Imagine you turned on the first switch in your bedroom and left it on for a bit. As soon as you turn it off, you quickly turn on the second switch and run to the room next door. If the fan is rotating slowly and is about to stop, that means that the first switch is the one that controls the fan. If the fan is running, then the second switch is the correct one. And if the fan isn't moving at all, then it was the third switch all along. Did you manage to crack this one? Hey, nobody said this was going to be easy. It's a mock job interview for a top-notch company after all. The third round is even trickier than the one before. An interviewer might ask you to solve this riddle to understand your pattern-finding capabilities. Let's say you were asked to watch a 6-lane car track for the day. Your job is to spot the 4 fastest cars out of 36. How many races would you conduct to find that out? Here's what you could do. Conduct 6 different car races, grouping 6 cars per race. After you determine the winner of each of these races, you conduct another race with the 6 finalists. The winner of this race will be determined as the fastest vehicle of all. Then just place the second, third, and fourth cars according to how they performed in the last race. By the end of 7 races, you'll have figured out the 4 fastest cars out of 36. Good for you if you figured this one out. For this next riddle, you need to think logically and mathematically. A queen needs to hire a worker for 7 days to do a job for her. The queen pays in gold bars, but she must pay the worker every day at the end of his shift. If the queen is only able to make a maximum of 2 cuts in the gold bar, how can she pay the worker the correct amount of 1/7 of the gold bar at the end of each shift? Let's see how this can work out. The queen makes 2 cuts in the bar, dividing it into 3 pieces. The first piece is 1/7 of the bar, the second piece is 2/7 of the bar, and the third one is 4/7 of the bar. After the first day of work, the queen gives the worker 1/7 of the bar as payment. On the next day, she gives him 2/7 of the bar, and asks for the 1/7 piece in return. At the end of the third day, she gives the worker the smallest piece again. This way, he has a total of 3/7 of the gold bar on his hands. Then, after the fourth day, the queen takes away the first 2 pieces and gives the man 4/7 of the bar. At the end of day 5, she gives the worker 1/7 of the bar again. And at the end of day 6, she gives the worker 2/7 of the bar and gets the 1/7 piece back. On day 7, she pays him with the final 1/7 piece, and the deal is completed. Ready for the last round of the first level? If you've answered everything correctly so far, I dare to say you are a part of a very special group of people. Good luck with this next one. It will determine whether you'll move on to the second level. 2 buses are driving toward each other at a speed of 40 miles per hour. They're separated by a distance of 40 miles. A bird is flying to and fro, landing on bus 1 and then on bus 2 at a speed of 50 miles per hour. By the time the buses come across each other, how many miles will the little bird have flown? Math lovers, this one's for you. The first thing we need to find out is the time it would take for the buses to meet. To find that out, we should divide the distance between the buses by the combined speed of both vehicles. If they're both driving at 40 miles per hour, then their combined speed is 80 miles per hour. Since the distance between them is 40 miles, we divide 40 by 80. This will give us 0.5 hours or 30 minutes. To figure out the total distance traveled by the bird, we multiply the speed of the bird by the time it will take the buses to meet. And this would give us 50 times 0.5, so the correct answer is 25 miles. Phew, I'm tired just thinking of that little bird flying all those miles. Hey, if you've aced this test so far, congratulations. You've just unlocked level 2. The riddles will get more and more difficult, so keep your mind sharp. A tortoise is currently at the bottom of a 210 feet hill and is trying to reach the top. Every hour, the tortoise climbs 15 feet and slips down 1 foot. How long will it take the tortoise to reach the top of the hill? Here's the thinking behind this riddle. Every hour, our tortoise buddy climbs a total of 14 feet, right? Since it climbs 15 and slides down 1 foot. According to this, it will take the tortoise 15 hours to get to the top of that cliff, since 15 multiplied by 14 equals 210. This wasn't too bad, huh? Questions such as these ones allow interviewers to test your problem-solving abilities regarding numbers. You know, if you want to work at a space company, you should probably be very, and I mean very, good with numbers. This next riddle is one of Elon Musk's personal favorites. It's short, yet complicated. If anyone here dreams of becoming an employee at SpaceX, you better get this one right. Imagine you're standing on the surface of Earth. You walk 1 mile south, 1 mile west, and 1 mile north. You end up exactly where you started. Where are you? If you answered the North Pole, then you got it right. But the riddle doesn't stop here. If you weren't at the North Pole, where else could you be given the exact same instructions? Yup, the South Pole. Here's how this works. This riddle presumes that the world is a perfect sphere. And if that were the case, the only place where you could walk 1 mile south, west, and north, and end up in the same place is at one of the poles. Got it? To get to level 3, you have to answer this riddle correctly. There are 2 strings in a room. All you know is that each string takes exactly 1 hour to burn. Your task is to time exactly 45 minutes, using the strings as your only source to find out the time. How can you do it? Here's how it goes. You should light both ends of the first string and one end of the second string. In 30 minutes, the first string would have burnt completely because it's burning twice as fast with both ends on fire. Then, you should light the second end of the second string. The second string would still have 30 minutes left to burn, but by lighting its other end, the rope will burn twice as fast, aka in 15 minutes. Voila! You've timed 45 minutes without the help of any clock whatsoever. Hey, Smarty Pants, you've just made it to level 3. If I were the interviewer, I would probably give you the job already. But just for the sake of it, be sure to answer everything correctly, okay? These final questions are way more job specific. As all questions in this video, they were used in real job interviews. So we're basically training you to ace your interviews. For example, if you were applying for a position at JP Morgan, this is the type of question you would have to answer. How many streetlights are there in New York City? Can you figure out the number before the time runs out? As impossible as this might sound to guess the answer without a Google search, what JP Morgan wants to test is your estimating abilities. Here's the logic. New York City boroughs have an ordered urban grid, so your first task would be to estimate the number of horizontal and vertical blocks in each borough. Then, estimate the number of streetlights each block may have. Multiply that number by 5 since New York City is made out of 5 boroughs. And then you'll have your number. If it's somewhere close to 300,000, then you got it right. If you were applying for a position at a healthcare company, you'd be faced with this fruity riddle. An apple costs 40 cents, a banana costs 60 cents, and a grapefruit costs 80 cents. How much does a pear cost? Yikes. I had to read it a few times before getting any idea of what to do with it. The key to answering this riddle is to focus on the vowels. If you charge 20 cents per vowel, the 2-vowel word apple will cost 40 cents. By this same logic, the 3-vowel banana will cost 60 cents, and the 4-vowel grapefruit will be 80 cents. In this scenario, a pear will cost 40 cents, and that's your answer. You've made it to the end of this test. Check your armpits. If you're sweating, that probably means you've done a very good job. To finish off, here's an interesting question a tech company asks their interviewees. How would you describe the internet to someone who has just woken up from a 30-year coma? Different from all the other questions, this one has no right or wrong answer. You might try to compare it with something that existed 30 years ago, for example. Or you might just go into Spielberg mode and describe this near sci-fi world we are living in nowadays. Either way, I hope you've got the job.
How about a refreshing brain workout? If you're ready, let's start. A man walked into a room and saw 3 doors. The first one had a sign which read, "To the swamps." On the second door, there was a note, "Lion's Den." The third door didn't have any sign, but the man knew for sure where it led. How? It was the door he had entered through. You return from your lunch break and discover that someone has stolen $50 from your bag. There are 4 suspects: Mila, Henry, Jackson, and Victoria. When you ask them about the money, Mila replies she hasn't taken it. Henry says he's pretty sure Jackson's got the money. Jackson shouts, "No way! Henry's lying!" And Victoria claims Mila's telling the truth. Only one of these people isn't lying. Who's taken your money? It's Mila. She, Henry, and Victoria are lying, while Jackson's telling the truth. If anyone else had taken your $50, there would be more than one person telling the truth. Several sparrows landed on trees. One bird for one tree. But in this case, one of them didn't have a tree of its own. Then they regrouped, with 2 sparrows sitting on one tree. After this, one tree was left birdless. How many birds and trees were there? there were 4 sparrows and 3 trees. 3 famous detectives came to a cafe to discuss a tricky case. A waiter came up to them and asked, "Does everyone want coffee?" The first detective said, "I don't know." The second detective answered, "I don't know." And the third detective said, "Yeah." Why did he say no? All the detectives wanted to have coffee, but the first 2 couldn't know if it could be everyone's choice. If the first 2 detectives hadn't wanted coffee, they'd simply have said no. So when the third detective heard the replies of his colleagues, he figured out that both of them wanted coffee. And since he was also going to have a cup, he said yes. Look at this picture and try to figure out who is an alien in disguise. It's the guy in a yellow shirt. He's eating a banana, but he hasn't peeled it before biting into it. He probably sees this fruit for the first time. You have an equation made of matchsticks. 6 plus 4 equals 4. Move just one matchstick to make it true. You need to take one matchstick from the plus sign and add it to 6 so that it makes 8. Then you'll have 8 minus 4 equals 4. Look at this picture. All these people seem to be very close, but who is the girl's husband? It's the guy on the right. He's the only one to have a wedding band on his finger. The next riddle to check how attentive you are. Who is her husband? It's the guy on the left. Look, here's his photo in the car. He's actually the owner of this vehicle. Can you figure out what's wrong here? These guys seem to be wearing smartwatches. Hey, detective, your next task is to understand where the criminal is hiding. Make sure to pay attention to every detail. The criminal is in House A. The car next to his house is parked in a way that makes it easier for the criminal to drive away as fast as possible. Can you figure out which of these people is in the greatest danger? It's this guy. This large icicle is about to fall right on his head. Is the person in the yellow car driving right or wrong? It's a wrong and very dangerous way of driving. The car is moving very slowly, and to overtake it, the next driver will have to maneuver from the leftmost lane to the right one. It can easily cause an accident. How can you get from 98 to 720 by just adding one letter? Add the letter X between 90 and 8. You'll get 90 times 8 equals 720. A wealthy businessman was traveling by a high-speed train. He had a suitcase full of cash on him. The train was moving through a mountainous area with numerous tunnels. After the train left one of the tunnels, the businessman noticed that his suitcase was missing. There were only 4 other passengers in the train car. Matthew said he had broken up with his girlfriend and didn't care about anything happening around. Joseph said that he'd bought his favorite author's novel at the station and had been engrossed in reading. Zoe said that she hadn't seen anything. Her eyes had been tearing, irritated by the smoke coming from the train. And Ellie claimed she had been napping with her sleeping mask on. So, can you figure out who took the businessman's suitcase? It was Zoe. Modern high-speed trains are electric and don't produce smoke. You've got a bag filled with oranges. You need to use these oranges to fill up 2 other bags of the same size. How can you do it? Put 1 empty bag into the other and fill them with oranges. Detective Marcus and another passerby became witnesses of a car accident. A man, hit by a minivan, was lying on the ground, unconscious. Marcus rushed to the nearest cafe to call an ambulance. When he got back, the passerby told him the man had turned onto his back, but hadn't come to his senses. After looking at the scene for a couple of seconds, the detective said, "You better return everything you've taken from this man." Why did he say so? When they saw the man at first, only 1 button was buttoned on his suit jacket, but now it's already 2 buttons. The passerby must have opened his jacket to look for the wallet and then buttoned it up incorrectly. Now, imagine you're lost in a forest on a freezing cold winter night. You realize that you have nothing to warm you up. There are 3 options: to stay where you are and call for help, to keep walking until you get out of the forest, and to go on, but take small breaks, sit on the snow, and cover yourself with some branches. What should you choose? If you stay in one place, you'll freeze in no time. Sitting on the snow during short breaks isn't a great idea either. Branches won't warm you up, and you may accidentally fall asleep and never wake up again. The only way to survive is to keep walking. Sarah invited her friend Alice, who was studying to become a police officer, to a party. It was organized by Sarah's friend Sean. Sarah was worried that there might be a thief at this party. Throughout the event, Alice was watching the guests attentively. At the end of the party, she told Sarah who the thief was. Have you figured it out too? It's the host, Sean. At the beginning of the party, one of his guests had a watch on his wrist, and this woman had a beautiful necklace. But at the end of the party, the watch is already on Sean's wrist, and the necklace is in that flower pot. See? Austin, a rich businessman, brought very important documents to his office, but he had a meeting and needed to leave for several hours. Austin asked his secretary to be super attentive. His competitors could try to break into his office to look at the documents. When he came back, his secretary told him everything had been quiet. But when the man looked around, he realized someone had been inside his office. The secretary eventually admitted having fallen asleep while Austin was away. How did the businessman understand someone had visited his office? The globe on his desk is now turned in the opposite direction. Look at these people attentively. Who does this dog belong to? The dog's owner is the guy in the middle. He's the only one who isn't trying to pet the animal.
Hey, meet Callum, the world's best detective. You ready for a ride-along? Let's go. It was a rainy and gloomy day, and Detective Callum was having a snack in his office. Suddenly, a woman burst in and asked for help. She said she had hung her laundry outside to dry, then gone back in the house to watch some TV. When she went back out, her favorite dress was gone. She suspected her neighbor, Jane. She was always jealous of that dress. She even wanted Jane arrested. Detective Callum wasn't impressed. He said she had just made up the whole story. How did he know? It was a rainy day. Who'd be silly enough to hang their laundry up outside? There was a speedy thief in town who ran so fast that no one could catch her. After a lucky tip-off, the police saw a woman climb in through a store window. They surrounded the store. Inside were 3 women. Detective Callum was called in to interrogate them and identify the thief. When the detective arrived, he didn't even need to ask a single question. He knew exactly who the thief was. Which one was it? It was the third woman. These 2 are wearing heels. They wouldn't be able to run in those things. The third woman is wearing sneakers. A downtown bank was robbed. There were 2 criminals, but police could only catch one of them, Bill. Bill refused to say who his accomplice was, but the police had already rounded up 3 suspects: Harry, George, and Ben. They called up their trusty friend, Detective Callum. The detective only needed 5 seconds to crack the case. I'll give you 7. It's Ben. Look, he has the exact same tattoo as Bill. Several women had gone missing recently, and even though it was a small town, police just couldn't catch a break. No clues for months. One day, Callum spotted the kidnapper going into a small abandoned shed. When he burst in, he found himself looking at 3 women. They all said they were locked in this small room and hadn't been out in months. But Callum knew one of them must be the kidnapper who was just pretending to be a victim. The first woman said her name was Genesis. She had been there about 8 months. The second woman, Tatum, said she had been there about 6. The third woman, Chloe, said she'd only been locked up for about 2 months. The detective knew exactly who the kidnapper was. Do you? It's Tatum. Look at her nails. She has a fresh manicure. 6 months? Yeah, right. The owner of an ice cream parlor filed a theft report. Someone stole all the money from the register. He was only gone for like 2 minutes. Detective Callum showed up 20 minutes later. There were 3 people inside. Ainsley said she had been talking on the phone with her friend. She hadn't seen anything. Red said he just arrived a couple of minutes ago. Joshua said he wasn't really paying attention. He didn't notice anything. So, can you figure out who's lying? Who stole the money? Rhett said he had just arrived, but his ice cream's already melted. Liar. Phoenix wanted to get her dad the best birthday present ever, but she didn't know what he wanted. She decided to break into his laptop to see what he had saved in his online shopping cart. One problem, the laptop required a password, and Phoenix didn't know it. Luckily, there was a note next to it. She sent a picture of it to her friend, Detective Callum. He solved it right away. Can you? The note doesn't make sense because it's upside down. Flip it over and you'll see a sequence of numbers 88, 89, 90, 91. The numbers before it are 86 and 87. So the password is 8687. Detective Callum traveled to a small neighboring city where young women were being kidnapped every day. 4 had already gone missing. They all lived on the same street. Their names were Ava, Bella, Celeste, and Daphne. There were only 3 women left on the street: Ava, Riley, and Georgia. Callum had to act fast. Who would be the next target? The women are getting kidnapped in alphabetical order A, B, C, D. The next target will be Ava. Mr. Coleman's mansion was robbed while he was on vacation. He immediately called Detective Callum. Everyone who had been to the house got interrogated. Sydney, his sister, said she'd gone to the house a couple of times to find some papers on Mr. Coleman's desk. Samantha, the gardener, said she'd come every week to water the plants. Asher, the cleaner, said he'd come every Friday to clean the house. Callum found all 3 of their fingerprints on Mr. Coleman's desk. He now knew exactly who the robber was. Who? It was Samantha, the gardener. Sydney and Asher had a reason to touch the desk, but Samantha wasn't even supposed to be in Mr. Coleman's office. There aren't any plants in there. A rich woman was robbed on her private yacht during a ferocious storm. A witness said they saw Kai watching the woman right before she was robbed. Kai denied everything and said he was in his cabin at the time, writing a letter to his wife. Detective Callum asked to see the letter. 5 seconds after Kai handed it to him, Detective Callum put him in handcuffs. Why? Kai said he wrote the letter during the storm. There's no way his writing could be this neat when the entire yacht was swaying around like crazy. Logan, a young businessman, was poisoned in his house. Detective Callum was on the scene. Pretty soon he had 3 suspects. Logan's girlfriend, Michaela. She said she hadn't seen him that day because she was busy at work. Next, there was his business partner, Rob. Rob said they'd had an argument and they both got pretty angry, but he hadn't poisoned Logan. The last suspect was Blair, the driver. She said she wouldn't know how to poison someone even if she wanted to. Who should Detective Callum arrest? Look, there's fresh lipstick on Logan's shirt. It matches Michaela's. But she said she hadn't seen him that day. Suspicious. Eloise found her friend Fleur poisoned in her room. She called Callum and told him she was walking past Fleur's house and noticed her light was on. She texted her, but Fleur didn't respond. She got really worried, so she broke a window, climbed in, and found her on the floor. But Detective Callum didn't believe her. He immediately arrested her for poisoning her friend. Why? Eloise said she broke a window to get in. If that was true, the broken glass should be inside the room, but it wasn't. Eloise had to cover her tracks, so she broke the glass later from the inside. A college student was robbed during a flag presentation. Detective Callum arrived to investigate the case and interrogated several suspects. Kennedy said that she was in the bathroom at the time. Gavin said he'd noticed that the Japanese flag was hanging upside down, so he'd gone over to fix it. Eleanor said that the student who was robbed was her best friend. She would never do that. Who's guilty? It's Gavin. He said that the Japanese flag was hanging upside down, but that flag looks the same either way. He's lying. Someone stole a diamond necklace at a private VIP party. The police followed the robber into a boutique store. There were 3 customers and they didn't know who the robber was, so they called Detective Callum. Adele said she'd never even been to a VIP party. Those things are for wealthy and famous people. Joseph said he'd never even heard about the party. Florence said she'd been in the shop for the last half hour, trying to find that perfect accessory. Who should Detective Callum arrest? Adele. She's wearing a gold bracelet and earrings. Seems like she was just at a pretty fancy event. Maybe a VIP party? Detective Callum got word that some outer space species had landed on Earth. He had a special mission to spot the aliens and report the information. He walked into a cafe. Aha! I spotted one. Who did he suspect? It's that dark-haired guy. He has 6 fingers. Mr. Brown, a wealthy businessman, was robbed last night. Detective Callum arrived as soon as he could and questioned 3 of Mr. Brown's neighbors. Mrs. Jonas said she got back late last night and went straight to bed. Mr. Polson said he'd always wanted to see the ocean, so he went on vacation to Bolivia. He just got back about an hour ago. Mr. Tanner said he'd spent the whole day working in the garden and went to sleep around 8 p.m. Who did Detective Callum arrest? Mr. Polson. He said he went to Bolivia to see the ocean, but Bolivia isn't next to an ocean. Richard ran into his boss's office. Finn had just hit him in the bathroom for not helping him with his weekly sales presentation. But Finn denied it all. The boss called his golf partner, Detective Callum. He arrived, looked at Richard and Finn, and somehow knew that Richard had lied. How did he know? Richard's bruise is on the right side of his face. Finn is eating a sandwich and holding it in his right hand. He's right-handed. If Finn had really hit Richard, the bruise would be on the left side of his face.
Lisa was a famous top model. She was found unconscious in her dressing room during a photo shoot and taken to a hospital. Doctors said she had a severe allergic reaction, but when Lisa came to her senses, she insisted she hadn't eaten anything all day. The model's manager was very concerned and interrogated everyone who'd been around. Lisa's stylist said that she had applied Lisa's makeup and indeed hadn't seen her eat anything. The cleaning lady said she had cleaned the dressing room with organic, non-allergenic products. Lisa's main rival, Nora, said that she'd been watching the shooting all day long. She hadn't noticed anything suspicious. Who's the culprit? It was the stylist. Lipstick was the only thing Lisa could have swallowed that day. In the middle of the night, Dennis woke up because of a loud crash. One of the kids must have been out, but they know they aren't allowed to leave at night. The man went to check on the children. All 3 of them, Catherine, Ruth, and Larry, seemed to be sleeping peacefully. Look at the kids and try to figure out who sneaked out of the house. It was Ruth. There's a dirty sneaker hidden behind the curtain and several pieces of French fries under her bed. Brenda was traveling by train. It was scorching hot in the carriage. The girl took off her gold bracelet decorated with diamonds and put it on the table in front of her. Several minutes later, the train entered a tunnel, and it got pitch dark. When the tunnel was left behind, there was no bracelet on the table. Brenda was shocked. "Someone's taken my bracelet!" There were just 3 other people in the compartment. Helen said she'd been sleeping. Rachel was reading a book on her phone, and Gregory had gone to the bathroom even before the train entered the tunnel. Who took the bracelet? It was Helen. At first, she had her sleeves rolled up, but now they're covering her arms down to the wrists, hiding the bracelet. Sarah bought some ice cream on Saturday, but kept the flavors in secret. When she woke up on Sunday, all the ice cream was gone. She asked everyone in the house if they knew anything about it. James answered he had gone to work early that morning and hadn't seen anything. Mary said she wanted to have the new caramel ice cream in the afternoon. She felt bad she was going to miss it. John didn't even know there was ice cream in the house, but he was looking forward to trying it. Can you figure out who knows something? It's Mary. The ice cream flavors were a secret. She couldn't be sure there was a caramel taste among them. Can you tell who's a real mermaid here? The second one is a guy, so he definitely isn't a mermaid. The girl on the right is chilling in the sun, and she's out of the water. Mermaids wouldn't do that because they dry out in the sun. So the real mermaid must be the one on the left. There were some thefts at the supermarket. There were 3 cases in total, in January, April, and June. The security camera recorded these videos. The security officer tried to have a closer look and suddenly noticed one detail. After that, the identity of the thief became clear. What did he notice? It was the pregnant woman. The attentive security officer noticed that in January, she looked about 6 to 7 months pregnant. In June, she looked the same. Seems like it's the mysterious case of the baby bump that was really a canned ham. One day, a thief decided to rob the local bank. He came up with a brilliant plan to dress up as one of the bank tellers and try to sneak into the vault. As he was approaching the vault, he saw a security guard standing right in front of the door. The robber hadn't anticipated this, so he hid and watched the guard carefully when one of the actual bank tellers walked up to the door. The security guard said 12. The worker answered 6 and got in. Then another teller came up to the vault. When the security guard said 6, the person answered 3 and was granted access. The thief nonchalantly walked up to the security guard when the guard said 10. The robber confidently answered 5. He was arrested immediately. So why was the thief's answer wrong, and what could he have answered instead? The response has to do with the number of letters in the word. 12 has 6 letters, so the answer is 6. 6 in turn has 3 letters, so the answer is 3. Well, you can see by now that the robber should have said 3. Looks like he wasn't as brilliant as he thought. For casting a spell, Flora should put these stones in the correct order. She has 4 of them: purple, green, red, and blue. The instruction says, 1. The red one only has 1 stone next to it. 2. The green and purple stones aren't next to each other. 3. The green stone is the last one. Can you help Flora? If the red stone only has 1 other stone next to it, then it's either the first one or the last one. But since green is the last one, then red is the first one. If the green and purple stones aren't next to each other, then there's the blue stone between them. So, the correct order is red, purple, blue, and green. It was midday. Kaylin was exploring a big local forest. She found an abandoned mansion and entered it. The door closed behind her back and wouldn't open.
Oh no!
Kaylin got trapped inside. There were 3 other doors leading to freedom, but there was a catch. Behind the first door, there was a huge pit that would take her miles underground. Behind the second door, there was a magnifying glass that concentrated sunlight and burned everybody and everything that entered. Behind the third door, there was a hungry and dangerous lion that would eat anybody and anything that entered.
Uh-oh.
How can Kaylin escape? Kaylin should wait until sunset. When the sun goes down, the second door with the magnifying glass won't be dangerous anymore. Amelia, Belle, Chloe, and Della are identical quadruplets who always prank people. One day, one of the girls' teachers had to let Amelia leave the class early. She had a doctor's appointment, but the woman wasn't sure which girl was Amelia. The quadruplets had decided to help her. Here is what they said. Amelia is one of the girls standing in the middle. No, Amelia is one of the girls standing on the sides. I'm Amelia. I'm not Amelia. 3 girls lied and 1 told the truth. Who is Amelia? If Amelia is the first girl, then 2 girls told the truth, the second and the fourth ones. If Amelia is the second girl, then the first and the fourth girls told the truth. If Amelia is the third girl, then the first and the third ones told the truth. But if Amelia is the fourth girl, then only the second girl told the truth. So, Amelia must be the fourth girl. Esme was having a walk in the forest and got lost. She found a witch's house, petted her black cat, and asked the witch to send her home. The witch wanted to play a game. If Esme won, she'd send her home. But if Esme lost, she'd have to stay with the witch forever.
We'll be saying numbers between 1 and 10. The next player will have to choose a number that's between 1 to 10 greater than the previous one. The first person to say 50 wins. You can start.
How can Esme win? If she wants to say 50, she needs the witch to say a number between 40 and 49. So, before 50, she has to say 39. If she wants to say 39, the witch has to say a number between 29 and 38. So, Esme has to say 28, and before that, 17, and before that, 6. So Esme must start with 6, and then say 17, 28, 39, and 50. Cassidy woke up in a dungeon and couldn't remember what happened to her. She needed to get out, but the door was locked and required a password. Can you guess what the password is? Every next number is made by moving the last digit of the previous 4 to the front. So, the password must be 4728. Mrs. Davies is an elderly lady telling a story of her life.
After I lived 1/4 of my life, I got my first car. I married 1/12 of my life later. 1/6 of my life later, I started a business. 1/4 of my life later, I got my first granddaughter. She just turned 18.
How old is Mrs. Davies? Let's say Mrs. Davies is X years old. 1/4 of her life, till she gets her first car, X is 4. Then we add 12 till her marriage. X till opening her business, 4 till the birth of her granddaughter, and finally 18 years from then till now. It should all be equal to X. If you solve this equation, you'll figure out that X is equal to 72. So, Mrs. Davies must be 72 years old. Esme was walking in the forest, and you know what? She didn't get lost this time. She knew how to get home, but the other road led to the witch's house, and the girl recently came up with a cool riddle for the witch. So, Esme decided to pay her a visit. She offered a deal. If the witch couldn't solve her riddle, Esme would get her cat. The witch agreed, and Esme gave her a square piece of paper, 4 inches by 4 inches, with a total area of 16 square inches. Turn it into a square with a total area of 8 square inches without a ruler. How can the witch do it? The witch should fold the 4 corners of the square towards the middle. This way, she'll get a square that is exactly twice as small as the original one. Apparently, the witch gets to keep her cat this time. There's a box filled with balls of different colors, 5 red ones, 8 blue ones, and 11 purple ones. Allison has a tricky task. Blindfolded, she has to keep picking up balls until she's sure that she has balls of at least 2 different colors. What's the minimum number of balls she should pull out of the box? In the worst-case scenario, Allison will be picking up balls of the same color until there are no more of them left in the box. The majority of balls are purple, so if she picks up a purple ball every single time, it'll be 11 balls. And only after that will she get a ball of a different color. So, she should pick up 12 balls.